Let's talk about Judas for a moment. In our culture, that's a name that makes most people go, ugh, we don't like that name at all. In fact, I have never, ever met a person in our culture named Judas. Nor have I ever met a woman named Jezebel. In our culture, the way we do it, you wouldn't name your kid those names. I'm sure there's an exception out there, and globally it may be a little different, but for us, especially here in the South, no, not happening. Matthew 26:14 is one of the places where you can begin to read about Judas and his betrayal of Christ and what happened. Of course, most people know the story. He sold Christ out for 30 pieces of silver. That was it. Now, you and I go, 30 pieces of silver. We're really not sure about that, are we? We're really not sure how that relates, because we don't deal in silver coins like they did. So if you'll do a little internet research and look up the value of those 30 pieces of silver, you'll find quite a bit of variation in the estimates of what they were probably worth by today's value. But the high end that I found in my research was that each piece of silver was probably worth about $100, as you and I would think of it. Which means that he sold his soul, his life, his happiness, his future out for the equivalent of $3,000. Pretty cheap price, wasn't it? He sold it out to Satan at bargain basement prices. I mean, he at least should have negotiated a higher price, because $3,000, or back in that day, that wasn't even a year's wage. That was a very small amount of money. I don't know what he thought he was going to do with it, but he wasn't going to go far on 30 pieces of silver. It was a pathetic deal. And what he did in that, of course, was he lost his joy, his happiness, his hope for the future, his desire to live. And as we all know, he went out and finally committed suicide, and nobody tended to his body. The language there suggests that he just hung on that tree until his body rotted and fell off. What a pathetic, horrible end to life. And all for 30 pieces of silver, which, as the story goes, he never even enjoyed, never even spent them, because his guilt had consumed him. So you look at the story of Judas and you go, wow, man, why would anybody be that irresponsible? Why would anybody do that? Why would they sell out that cheap? And I don't know the answer. But I do know that people do it all the time. Now, we'll agree they get a little more than $3,000 in their trade-off, but they sell out their eternity, their soul, for absolutely nothing when you compare it to eternity. Think of the rich man in torment. He had lived in a wonderful life. He lived in luxury. He ate what he wanted. He dressed like he wanted. Everybody thought he was the one that arrived. He was one of the leaders of his community financially. And then when he died, death stripped him of everything. And then he realized what a fool he had been. He sold his soul, his eternity, for virtually nothing. Because all of this life is virtually nothing. And people do the exact same thing over and over and over and over. They sell it for a middle class life. They sell it so they can work a few extra hours to buy a car. They sell it so they can go on an extra vacation or go recreate, or some folks just so they can sleep in late. Now think about that one. Sold their soul to the devil for a nap, so they could sleep in late. And I have an idea that when they get on the other side of the tombstone, they're going to be missing those naps big time, because as the Bible says, day and night they have no relief. Now, one of the differences is that as we look at Judas, you can see him, people literally could see him hanging at the end of that rope, and they could see and judge very quickly what a crazy, pathetic, sad decision he had made. However, for people today that are doing the exact same thing in principle, you can't see it, because the hanging of sorts happens on the other side of the tombstone. In the spiritual realm, And all we can do is talk about that. We can go on what the Bible has to say about that, but we don't see it. Oh, sure, we read about the rich man being in torment. He says, I'm in torment in this flame. And we're going, yeah. And we just kind of blow it off because we didn't really see it. But it's there. Our choices in life have consequences. And we have to own those consequences. And if we don't own them in the right way, I'm afraid they're going to own us like Judas' choices owned him. Something kind of dark, kind of heavy to think about. I'll agree with that. But I do hope you give it some thought. And as always, I hope you have a great day.